Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rebecca Dunn, and I'm the Research Station Outreach Coordinator in the Office of Research Agri-Food Partnership. Today's webinar, featuring the Ontario Crops Research Centre at Elora, is the second installment of a four-part webinar series. And this series was developed to demonstrate how Ontario's agricultural research centres support our provincial and federal agriculture sectors by providing a platform for collaboration, innovation, and provide a space for researchers to conduct the latest research that advances the agri-food sector. So this webinar is hosted by the Ontario Agri-Food Innovation Alliance, which is a collaboration between the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs and the University of Guelph. During today's webinar, we will hear from Claudia Wagner-Riddle from the School of Environmental Sciences at the University of Guelph, and Angela Stratoff from the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association talk about how access to the Crop Centre at Elora enable their collaborations and research projects. So before we begin, I just want to note a couple of housekeeping items. If you would like to submit questions throughout the webinar, please feel free, but just use the Q&A tab to the right. And captions are available below just by clicking the red button. And please note that this presentation will be recorded so that we can make it available to those who couldn't attend today. But the recording will stop before the Q&A period begins. So now we'll have the opportunity to hear from Vice President of Research and Lauren Hepworth. So the Vice President of Research, Malcolm Campbell, and Lauren Hepworth, who is the Chair of the Agricultural Research Institute of Ontario, and they will give some opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Malcolm Campbell, and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as the Vice President Research at the University of Guelph. I'm here today to talk to you about agricultural research centers that we operate on behalf of the Agricultural Research Institute of Ontario and the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. These agricultural research centers are operated by University of Guelph as part of the Ontario Agri-Food Innovation Alliance, a remarkable partnership between OMAFRA and the University of Guelph. These agricultural research centers are located right across the province in traditional Indigenous territory. This territory has been occupied by Indigenous people for millennia, where they themselves have been involved in agricultural practices and where they remind us that we are bound to this traditional territory through the dish with one spoon covenant. A covenant that reminds us that we all consume collectively out of one bowl with but one spoon. It's a good reminder of what it is that we do at these agricultural research centers, because there we generate knowledge that we all share collectively. And the knowledge that we create at these research stations is phenomenal. It's phenomenal because it addresses the real world priorities of the Ontario agriculture and food sector. So the research that we conduct generates discoveries that in turn fuel innovation, that in turn increase productivity, enhance sustainability, lead to greater job creation and trade. As such, these research centers are phenomenal engines for driving forward the productivity of Ontario's remarkable multi-billion-dollar agriculture and food sector. The research that is done at these centers is done in partnership. It's not done alone. It's done with University of Guelph researchers working together with colleagues in OMAFRA, as well as working together with many private and public sector partners, partners from other universities, as well as partners from industry. And importantly, people for whom the discoveries really make a difference. Our agriculture and food sector partners here in the province, from farmers all the way to consumers. We're immensely proud of the research that emerges from the agriculture research centers here in the province of Ontario, and it gives us the greatest of pleasure to share with you through this series the incredible game-changing differences that we're making. It now gives me the greatest of pleasure to turn things over to the Chair of the Board of Directors of the Agricultural Research Institute of Ontario, Lauren Hepworth.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. My name is Lauren Hepworth, and I'm the chair of the Agricultural Research Institute of Ontario, or ARIO as it's more commonly known. ARIO is an agency of the Government of Ontario with responsibility for providing strategic advice to our Minister on agri-food research priorities, modernizing the province's agri-food research facilities, and oversight of competitive research programs, and finally, management of the 15 research properties that are owned by ARIO. This network of research stations includes facilities that focus on virtually every major agriculture sector. ARIO invests in these properties because they are critical to research advancement and bringing innovation to Ontarians. They are world-class facilities that are available to researchers and students, including such places as the newly built Elora beef barn. They are a platform for research that drives innovation, sustainability, and productivity, keeping our agri-food sector competitive both locally and globally. ARI works closely with the University of Guelph, which provides property management and research expertise to ensure these facilities run efficiently. This strong relationship among ARIO, OMAFRA, and the University of Guelph ensures the research stations are built, optimized, and maintained to accommodate future-facing, demand-driven research and innovation that benefits all of Ontario. I hope you enjoy hearing about the collaborations and the impact these stations facilitate for the benefit of the agri-food sector in Ontario.
Before we begin and hear from our first live speaker, I'm going to provide a brief overview on the crops portion of the Elora station. So this station has been in existence since 1966 and is located just outside the town of Elora, about 15 minutes north of Guelph. The Elora Research Station is one of the largest agricultural research farms in Canada, covering 2,310 acres. It encompasses the Ontario Crops Research Centre, the Ontario Beef Research Centre, and the Ontario Dairy Research Centre. It is designed to support intensive research in crops, soils, beef, and dairy. The crops portion sits on 400 acres, and the research land base is 380 acres in 82 distinct fields. It is important for all aspects of pre- and post-harvest cropping operations, including seed treatment, processing, storage, and security. The Crop Centre at Elora is recognized as an official Environment Canada weather station and measures several parameters such as air temperature, soil temperature, rainfall, and more. There are also 18 lysimeters on site. Lysimeters are large steel cylinders that surround undisturbed soil cores and are equipped with sensors at various depths. They're used to study the impacts of different types of crop rotations on soil health. In terms of research, research programs use the crops research portion of the station for breeding programs in cereals, corn, edible beans, soybeans, canola, and forages. And other research programs include herbicide evaluation and development trials, forage and pasture management, potato, native flower, and coal crop development, and also the evaluation of the effects of crop rotations on soil structure, crop performance, and manure management. This year, the Ontario Agri-Food Innovation Alliance is celebrating the 40th and 25th anniversaries of the long-term plot rotation plots at the Elora Research Station and Ridgetown campus. This research into long-term crop rotation, tillage systems, and nitrogen management has generated results that benefit the agri-food sector in Ontario and around the world. 4 key findings that were actually found from that research is available through a series of key findings infographics to help crop advisors and farmers make on-farm decisions to remain competitive and sustainable. So the link was just in that last slide there if you want to access those infographics. So today our first speaker is going to be Claudia Wagner-Riddle from the School of Environmental Sciences. Claudia is a professor of agrometeorology at the University of Guelph. She leads an internationally renowned research program utilizing the measurement of greenhouse gas emissions to determine the carbon footprint of food, feed, and fuel produced by agriculture. So we're going to let Claudia take it away.
Great, thank you for that introduction. So what I'm going to tell you is just give you a bit of an overview and highlights of some research results that we've obtained in the last few years. So in the next slide, you can see that my theme is around soil health. And there has been quite a bit of interest in soil health in the last few years. Ontario has launched its soil health and conservation strategy a couple of years ago. Large companies such as Cargill are investing in so-called regenerative agriculture practices with the mission to advance ecosystem services provided by soils and agricultural systems. And there is even now the idea of soil wealth, that is combining or having portfolios of investors that have a focus on agricultural systems that, again, restore and enhance soil health. So with this in mind, I just want to give you a bit of an overview of why is it that we're interested in soil health. And it's because it impacts a number of ecosystem services that are provided by soils. So this diagram here that was launched in 2015 and the Year of the Soil, which by the way, World Soil Day is coming up at the end of the week. So this is, my presentation today is fitting to the theme. And if I would just focus on the top ecosystem services on the diagram here, from left to right, you can see a provision of food, fiber, and fuel. So, without soils, we can't produce food. Carbon sequestration, so soils store large amounts of carbon. Water filtration, as well as, reduction of contamination of waterways. Climate mitigation, so reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, so that's impacted by soil health, as well as nutrient cycling. So with that in mind, then, if we look at how we can manage better soil to reduce and improve soil health, we can see that in these pictures here, the general practices that impact soil health. So we know if the soil is left covered year round, that's better, particularly if it has some growing plants year round, like cover crops. Crop diversity enhances or can enhance and impact soil health. Tillage, or the reduction of tillage, promotes soil health, as well as adding organic amendments, be it in the form of manure or cover crops. So we've initiated a number of years ago this multidisciplinary research to try to put some numbers on kind of the benefit of improving soil health through diversification and use of cover crops. And we're showing this here in a schematic way, where the picture on the right shows one of the ways that we can add cover crops to corn systems by planting it early in the season and having this nice green cover once the corn is harvested. And this is akin to perennializing rotation. So always like keeping the ground covered through either things like crops like winter wheat or the addition of cover crops. And these, as I mentioned, these practices can affect all the soil ecosystem services as shown in the diagram. So for this research, we have had a number of collaborators, funders, and partners that I'm listing here. Professors and students from the University of Toronto, Western, and Saskatchewan are current collaborators. we've received funding from Canada Foundation for Innovation in the province of Ontario for the soil lysimeter facility that you'll hear a little bit more, from the Agri-Food Alliance, NSERC, Grain Farmers of Ontario, Fertilizer Canada, and federal government, Agriculture Canada and Environment Canada. We've collaborated with their researchers, as well as the CEFREF, and finally OSCIA, with who you will be hearing about from in a minute. So Rebecca referred to the Elora Research Station as being a platform for research, and I really like that term. And we've benefited from sort of three contrasting platforms that I'm showing here in this diagram. So starting at the bottom with A, that's the soil lysimeter facility, where we've also installed have the Soil Health Interpretive Center, an outreach facility, where we measure processes at a scale of about 1 meter square. I'm making a sign here. Then we move to B, where Rebecca also referred to this long-term crop rotation and tillage trial, which I will tell you a little bit more. And that's a scale of between 50 to 100 meters square each plot. And then we also have for a long time used this micrometeorological site, a greenhouse gas monitoring site, where we do measurements of the order of 10 hectares. The next slide gives you details of the soil lysimeter facility. So this was a $2 million project funded by both the federal and provincial government, where 18 large soil cores, so these are 1 meter square at the top by 1.5 meters deep, and which were excavated both at a site in Elora and also in Cambridge to have two contrasting soil types. There are 18 of them, 9 of each soil type. The excavation process or soil core extraction process was a long process to ensure that the soil is not compacted or deformed and altered in any way. Then sensors were installed at different depths, and these cores sit on 3 loading cells that allow us to weigh the core, which is each one is about 3 tons, and then the change in weight over time gives us the complete water budget. From that, we can derive nutrient budgets, and they are set up in 3 sets of 18 with a service well in the center where all the instrumentation is connected to. So I'm just giving you one highlight of results from the study at this site, where we've shown that cover crops reduce nitrate leaching of the order between 70 to 77%. You can see the 2 pictures, the one without any green cover and the one with green cover. And the results are shown for both soil types, the loam and sand. And the values on the right is the amount in kilograms of N per hectare over this 1 year period. So a reduction from between 20 to 16 to between 4 and 5. So that is certainly a significant impact on water quality that cover crops or soil health practices can bring. In terms of the long-term crop rotation and tillage trial that was started back in 1980 and up to recently has been run by Bill Dean, a professor at plant agriculture at Guelph. And this is another platform where by the fact that the history of management on these plots is well known and has been kept constant over this 40 or so year period, and where we can then look at how crop diversification, for example, continuous corn, which is the CCC, versus continuous alfalfa, versus some diversification with wheat or red clover, which is the RC, into tillage practices, how that affects soils. And we've had a number of researchers from Toronto, Saskatchewan, running experiments on these plots to study what is going on in terms of soil processes. So I'm showing you two results from our studies. One that is a modeling study with researchers from Agriculture Canada as collaborators, where we've seen or we've found that the trend that has been observed in the last decade in these plots, where diversified rotations have yielded more and increased carbon sequestration, under a future climate scenario, this trend is maintained. In fact, it is accentuated. So the three bars there that I am highlighting in red are the more diversified rotations where winter wheat or red clover or alfalfa, like a perennial, is included, compared to the simpler rotation of just continuous corn or corn soybeans. We've proposed a paradigm on how that organic matter impacts the processes in the soil, where it's catalyzing the capture of resources such as water and nitrogen through better root development that is allowed due to less compaction and better aeration when soil organic matter is higher. Moving on to my last few slides, the Micromet site has actually been in sort of research since the 1960s, so way before my time. It is ideally suited for the type of measurements we do because it's level and homogeneous, as you can see. It's an area of about 16 hectares, which we use to have sort of subplots of about 4 hectares where we change management. It's heavily instrumented with towers that have instrumentation installed on them, as well as a trailer at the center that has instrumentation such as tunable diode laser, trace gas analyzer, and this allows us to get complete carbon and greenhouse gas budgets from these sites. So basically these instruments on the tower capture the wind blowing over these larger plots and integrates the measurements and gives us a net carbon exchange. So some just highlights of results that have shown that compared to annual crops, a perennial crop has much lower emissions of nitrous oxide. So that goes with the recommendation that to improve soil health, it's good to include some perennials in rotation, as well as the net greenhouse gas emissions are reduced under perennial due to it sequestering and keeping carbon in and also reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. So some take-home messages. These existing platforms, they allow us to conduct novel research, and we've concentrated on soil health and soil ecosystem services. And each one of these platforms has its advantages in terms of scale. We've been able to get additional funding that enhance the infrastructure, for example, the Canada Foundation for Innovation and the creation of the Soil Health Interpretive Center, and we hope to be able to continue doing so. And highlights of 3 results indicating the benefits of these soil health systems. And these results are relevant for our partners, as you will hear from OSCIA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for that great presentation. Our second speaker is Angie Stratoff from the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association. So Angie is the program director with the OSCIA and has her PhD in soil biology and chemistry. At OSCIA, she oversees delivery of cost share and soil health programming to farmers. And as a little fun fact, Angela or Angie started on her path in research by doing her master's in land resource science 10 years ago with Claudia.
Thanks for the introduction, Rebecca, and Claudia gave a great introduction to the connection I'll be making to OSCIA's role in the partnership with Elora Research Center. So I'll be speaking about how the Crops Research Center in Elora provides benefit to Ontario farmers and Ontario's agricultural industry more broadly through OSCIA's partnerships with the researchers, including Claudia, and through alignment with our strategic priorities and engagement with our membership of farmers. So OSCIA was founded in 1939. For those of you who don't know about our organization, we're a relatively unique, not-for-profit farm organization that represents all commodity groups across the province. We have a diverse membership with over 4,000 member farmers and a strong presence in all commodity groups. Our mission statement is to facilitate responsible economic management of soil, water, air, and crops through development and communication of innovative farming practices. So you can already imagine how directly that's related to the work that's being conducted in Elora that Claudia described. Our mission is guided by 4 strategic directions, which you see listed here: producer education, which we do through workshop delivery, again, to all commodity organizations, consumer outreach, local and regional association development, and program delivery. So this includes delivery of cost share programs, funding programs that support farmers in implementing best management practices, such as those investigated at Elora. OSCIA has a long, positive, fruitful history of collaboration with the University of Guelph and the researchers conducting work in Elora. We're also working closely with the Soils at Guelph initiative and are in conversation to keep these collaborations going in future proposals as well. So in this year, in 2020, OSCIA has released a new strategic plan. It's a 3-year plan with 4 strategic priorities listed here. And in particular, I'm going to focus on how cultivation of grassroots engagement and expansion of impact of on-farm applied research is supported by the activities in Elora. So the research conducted there really aligns with those 2 current priorities, cultivating grassroots engagement among our membership and our local and regional soil and crop associations. So we have over 50 county level local associations and 12 regional associations across the province. And secondly, the research at Elora helps us expand the impact of on-farm applied research by helping us share results and receive feedback that then we funnel back to the researchers through our partnerships with them. So the Crop Research Station provides, first of all, a fantastic physical space and interactive and visual learning opportunities for our members, engagement opportunities with our partners, and it helps foster strong partnerships, as I mentioned, with the researchers and provides resources for our members. So in just the past couple of years, for example, the Crop Research Station has hosted tours of the Lysimeters and the Soil Health Interpretive Center for our provincial summer meeting in 2019. That over 100 people came through, and also local association meetings for counties that are close enough to take advantage of the facilities there. In the picture on the slide here, we have a group that OSCIA actually hosted of German agricultural university students who were hosted by OSCIA as part of their educational excursion to Ontario in the summer of 2019. So we brought them to the Soil Health Interpretive Centre and the Elora Research Station to see the lysimeters, which they were obviously very impressed by. And onto the other strategic priority of OSCIA to expand the impact of on-farm applied research. The research questions that are asked at Elora are relevant to the priorities that all of our membership base ask because they're relevant across all commodities. They're based in soil, which is really like the underpinning common medium of all agriculture in Ontario. And these results are easily translatable and applicable to management practices that our membership are very curious about. So they're relevant to the research questions that our own applied research trials conducted on cooperating farms are investigating as well, which I'll describe in a moment, that are supported by the Applied Research Committee of OSCIA. So again, the image here is a tour that the Wellington County Soil and Crop Improvement Association had in 2019 at the Soil Health Interpretive Centre. So you can really see how our membership is taking advantage of the facilities and the opportunity to connect with folks like Campbell, pictured here. So the applied research initiatives are identified by the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association's Applied Research Committee. There's 4. Our committee is made up of OSCIA staff, OMAFRA staff, farmers who are elected members of our board of directors, and we have rotating academics and other commodity organizations that consult with our committee. So these aren't all of our research priorities, but they are the ones that I've identified as being most directly supported by the research conducted at the Crops Research Station. We recognize as an organization the facilities in Elora are world-class. We feel very privileged not only to be close in location to the center, but to have this close and productive working relationship with folks like Claudia. In partnership with the Research Center, there's also plenty of knowledge transfer opportunities that our organization and the researchers take advantage of. So we work with researchers conducting experiments at Elora to brainstorm innovative knowledge transfer opportunities to farmers to share research output. The innovator that you see pictured here is our province-wide newsletter. It reaches over 4,000 member farmers. Our social media also has a considerable following and a high engagement proportion. So we can share the results or requests for farmer input also through our membership's listserv, which reaches those 4,000 member farmers that I mentioned. As an organization, we're experts in coordination and facilitation of farmer and industry focus groups and educational workshops. So there's also opportunity there to share the output of the research from Elora. There's great support of the research findings through program development and delivery. The research conducted in Elora is critical in supporting the initiatives that OSCIA contributes to or delivers, such as the Soil Health and Conservation Strategy. Claudia also mentioned this document, and it's actually currently being followed up on by an action group that's responding to that document's call to action. So the practices identified in that strategy really stem from a lot of those being investigated in the fields at Elora. We also deliver the environmental farm plan. Over 75% of farms in Ontario have participated in that voluntary workshop. Through the recent on-farm program, we're also conducting on-farm research trials on farms across Ontario that look at the practices that Claudia mentioned, reduced tillage and crop rotation and different levels of fertilization management. So you can see there's really close alignment here with not only the results that are coming out of the station, but also the questions that are being inspired by our own membership and fed back to the researchers to kind of keep the curiosity going. So I just want to share an image here. This is Gordon Bell with our past president, Les Nichols. Gordon conducts his master's thesis research at the research station with Claudia, and he was the most recent recipient of OSCIA's Graduate Scholarship in Soil Health. OSCIA is also currently hosting another master's student, Lindsay Van Kopen, who conducts her research in soil health with Carrie Dunfield at Elora as part of the Climate Smart Soils program. So as a partner, we're also really invested in inspiring and supporting the next generation of soil researchers as well. So this is a great partnership. Again, we really value the proximity of the station, but most importantly, the innovative practices being researched there, the engagement of the researchers with our membership, and the information that the results provide to our membership and partner farmers. Thank you.
Thank you both, Claudia and Angie. It was really great to hear your perspectives on how these research stations are assisting your work. Thank you everybody for those great questions. We really appreciate that. And once again, I just want to say thank you so much to our presenters for those great presentations. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to note that we have our next webinar coming up on February 2nd, also at 1:30. So feel free to sign up for that if you'd like to join us. I just want to thank everybody for coming. And if you have any additional questions, you can feel free to contact me through my email, which will be at the bottom of the next slide. So again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our speakers, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.